It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. So I'm really excited to introduce you to a colleague, a friend, a woman who I greatly admire. So Linda McCabe took over as president and owner of a struggling small business and grew it to the multi-millions in sales. She's a powerhouse to be known. She today has a podcast where she hosts an inspiring and powerful podcast. It's called Lightning Strikes. It's practical wisdom for everyday success. And I have been fortunate to be a guest on Linda's podcast. Of course, as I've gotten to know Linda, I said, well, you have to come on to Her Success Story because my listeners are going to benefit from your vast experience, knowledge, and brilliance. So Linda, thank you for joining me here today.
You're so welcome. It's so nice to be here. Thank you.
So how did you start, taking over this small, struggling, fledgling company back in the day, and what did you do with it?
Well, it was owned by my father, and I had done many things. I was in the publishing industry, and then I became a teacher. And I just always had this feeling that I wanted to own a company, that I wanted to start a company or somehow have a company. And so I decided to go to work for my dad. And he said, "What the hell do you know about the scrap metal business?" And I said, "I don't know, but I'll learn." And I adopted that attitude throughout the entire time I was with my father, that I would just learn.
And so there was never a lot of women in the scrap metal business back in the day or today, to my knowledge.
Well, I don't know about today, but I do know about my time, which was in the 80s. And in Chicago, which is a fairly large city, there were two or three women, myself included, that owned a scrap metal company.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So what else would you like to know?
And so your dad's business, you get invited in. And what did you start doing? What was some of the observations you saw and then the actions you started taking?
Well, I came in to sell. So I had not had any experience in sales. So the summer before I was a teacher, so I had the summer off. So I read every single book I could get my hands on sales. So that's mainly what I was going to do. And the other part that I was doing, because I came in as I did, is I was doing, kind of secretarial work, odds and ends like that. I really didn't get into the nuts and bolts of the scrap metal business. But my dad passed away, let's say in 87, and I took over the company, and I just learned as I went. I just learned what I had to learn. It was very male dominated. And sometimes men behaved that way and sometimes they didn't. I had a lot of mentors in the business. I went to them and asked for help, and they were all wonderful, just wonderful. And I had to learn how to have a staff. When I came in, there were about, maybe 5 people, and I grew the company. So we had 33 employees. So I had to learn how to be a boss to 33 employees. So it was interesting.
And so with a background as a teacher, where was the knowledge base to apply to move forward? Because I would guess there is some, but there's also limited.
I really don't see very much other than when you're teaching, you learn how to treat people, you learn how to respect people, and it's much the same when you're running a company. You have to understand what they want and how to present it to them. And that was some of the things I had to learn.
So how long did you end up running that company, and what
15
happened
years.
to it?
15 years.
And then what was the next transition? Because, it's you and I have so much in sync. When we just started talking, and I remember taking this long walk, I was walking somewhere, and then I was like, and I got to my meeting, and I was like, and Linda and I are still chatting, and I was like, I wonder if they're really ready for me yet. Can we talk some more? Because we both came from like coming into our father's businesses with the specific action of increased sales, and then ended up leading and growing two businesses exponentially, and then we have both transitioned. So what was your moment that you said, it's time for me to change?
I just felt that we had done as much as I felt like I wanted to do. We just reached a point where we were a great size. We could sell the business for a lot of money. And I decided that's it. There's a lot of hard work and hard hours. And I just said, on to the next thing. And I had been in a mentoring group when I owned H. Diamond, mostly men. And I loved the way that they did it. And I loved the everything that I learned from them. I thought it was excellent. But I noticed there weren't any women, so I decided to do the same thing for women. I started a group for women, and I ran that for the next 15 years. It was a coaching group, group coaching for women.
And did you know, I'll say I knew when I transitioned and started building Slater Success, there's that expression of building an airplane while you're in the air. And that was, very much was the feeling that I had, because I didn't know, I have a true intrinsic understanding of what the coaching piece would look like, the consulting piece would look like, the growth. Like, did you have a clear vision? Because I'm definitely jealous if you did.
I did. I took what I had from the group that I was in, and then I just had all kinds of ideas just falling into place. And what we did is we had a reading. I would choose a book that was a self-help book, a popular book, a business book, and I would take excerpts from it. And I would, at that time, email it to everybody. At that time, that's what I had to do, or fax it, whatever. And we would read, everyone would read that. We would have a discussion, and then we go to each person and ask what was bothering them or what they needed to focus on. And we would all discuss it and offer suggestions, and they would get homework. They would get from me something specific that they had to accomplish before they returned to the next meeting.
Interesting. And I have so many questions, Linda. In building a business from this, right? What was that about? Did you say, okay, so this is a business model, this is what I'm going to do, or was it more of a passion project?
I wanted it to be a business because I wanted to continue to make money. And so I decided how much I had to charge, how many people would be involved, how often I would have the meetings, those kinds of decisions. So that's what it turned out to be. It was very popular. I ran 5 groups because I didn't want to run more. And I got lots of offers from lots of companies to go into business or get money from them, or to, turn into what they're doing. And I didn't want to. I've always been very independent, and I just wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I had, I always made a nice living. I was always comfortable, and I just didn't feel the urge to get bigger than what I was.
I happen to love that, and I respect that. Your clarity speaks so much. And I said a little tongue in cheek, but I'm not kidding, in the sense of, when I started, I was not clear where this company was going. I had a vision for helping and supporting women in business, because I just felt there was so much out there for the guys. And especially back in the day, there was not enough out there for women leaders. But I admire incredibly how clear your vision was, and then how clear then your actions could be.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate all my life. When I'm faced with a lack of knowing what I'm going to do or how I'm going to do it, just relaxing into it and kind of letting it come to me. And that's happens to me quite a bit. I was going to mention something else about it. Oh, well, it slipped my mind. We'll move on.
So where are you as far as, what was the catalyst to start a podcast?
Well, I decided I was going to retire.
Congratulations, kind of, sort of.
I went from doing this group coaching for another 10 years or so, 15 years, and I don't remember exactly. And I did business coaching for small businesses like you, but smaller businesses than you do. Right. And I just decided I'm done and I'm going to retire. And I was speaking to a friend of mine, a very close friend, and I said to her, I've achieved everything that I've set out to do, except when I was about 25 years old, I said, I would love to interview people, some kind of a program or some way. And I never did that. That's the one thing that I never got to do that I wanted to do. And she said, well, you could still do it. And I said, really? How would that work? And she said, well, you can do a podcast. And I said, what's that? I mean, I didn't even know. And I remember talking to another friend and saying, well, aren't I too old for a podcast? And he said, is this the Linda McCabe that I know? And I said, you are right. And I just full steam ahead. And then things just fall into place for me. Somebody knew, someone that takes care, does the editing and all of that. And I have somebody to do the scheduling for me. All I had to do was sit and interview people.
Isn't that nice?
It was very nice.
So as a kind of sort of retired woman, if you had one lesson to pass down to women leaders today, what would that be?
Stop being so hard on yourselves. Just cut it out. That feeling that I'm not good at this, or I can't do that, or so-and-so is better. First of all, comparing doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't help. The only comparing that helps is comparing yourself from where you are to where you want to be. But I find that women get lost in picking on themselves and finding fault. And I don't think that men do that as much.
Yeah. I happen to agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly that women's to start looking in the mirror and see how valuable we are and what we have to contribute and how important that is. And if we start looking at ourselves that way, how others will then reflect and look at us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so easy for us to say, oh, Ivy, she's a better business person than I am or something. And the truth is, if we did look at ourselves the way we look at others and see those things in ourselves, we would feel much better and do much better.
So if you're leaving a legacy, what would it be?
Oh, gosh.
Just so you know, listeners, I'm going to give Linda a chance to talk. Because we know each other, I have not prepped her. I didn't give her these questions in advance. I'm truly just rolling with this and pushing you there. So I appreciate you there, Linda.
I think my legacy would be for women to get on with it. I've always been a tremendous supporter of women and women's issues. And I've been listening since my teaching days, going to events for women and listening to the same thing over and over and over again. And I think we have to move forward. We're doing well, but we need more women in corporations, and we need more women in leadership. I failed to mention that I'm the author of 3 books on women, and I did one on corporate women, and there's still so many problems for corporate women having opportunities, learning how to negotiate, those kinds of things. I would advise women who are truly interested in getting ahead to pick up a book as fast as you can, as often as you can, and read them and learn from them.
I appreciate that. And I sometimes, even reread things in the sense of sometimes, like when I drive, I like to listen to audiobooks.
That's a great idea.
And I just find I do 2 things when I drive, and a complete disclosure. I sometimes listen to audiobooks, and sometimes I just call a girlfriend.
Yes.
Because
yes.
Life is busy, and it's important for us to have our girlfriend and our girlfriends, our interpersonal relationships, our friendships, and those need to be nurtured as well. And so sometimes, depending upon how long the drive, I get both.
Yeah, that's great. That's terrific. Yes.
So Linda, let's talk about the podcast a little bit, so we can have some people cross-sectioning between her success story and your podcast, which is, I was very honored to be a part of.
Yes, my podcast interviews business people, business leaders, and I try to get a cross-section of different people. I'm a little top-heavy on coaches, but I guess I'm fascinated with them and know people. But what we do is try to find out how they were successful, what they did, what fears they had, what challenges they had, how they reached their success, kind of the same kind of questions that you're asking. And I go back into their childhood, find out who they were when they were younger, how they made changes. And we get some wonderful responses.
Love it. Well, listeners, if Linda's not, I'm going to do a huge plug. Check out on your podcast apps, Lightning Strikes, Practical Wisdom for Everyday Success. And Linda is an awesome interviewer, and she delves deep, So Linda, how can our listeners connect with you, reach out to you, learn more about you?
Oh, God, you got me. Just go on LinkedIn. That's a good way. Yeah, that's the best way.
And perfect. Listeners, remember, Linda's correct spelling is in the show notes, so it's not hard. Connect to her. Let her know which part of her story, what made an impression on you. And if you learned something from tuning into her success story today, pass that forward to people who are in your heart, who it can help as well, these interviews continue to make an impact. Feel free to go hit subscribe, and we will see you next week with some more great interviews with wonderful people just like Linda McCabe.